Good morning. We'll get started. I apologize for being a few minutes late. Welcome to this meeting of the California High-Speed Rail Authority Board. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Schenk.
Here.
Vice Chair Richards.
Here.
Vice Chair Selby.
Here.
Director Rossi is absent. Director Perez Estelano.
Here.
Director Correa.
Present.
Director Curtin.
Here.
Chair Richard.
Here. Please join me in honoring America with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Where's the
Flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I'd like to say that I was somewhat chagrined this morning to see this physical layout, because I'd like to think that our board is a very unified board that works well together. But we've been split asunder by the staff, but I understand it's for good reasons, because we have a projector here. So I don't want anyone to draw any conclusions about the less important colleagues to my right.
Right wing versus left wing.
Well, there's that too. Yeah, that's this could get deep in a hurry. Okay, we'll proceed through the agenda, and we'll start with public comment. And I have the public comment cards in front of me. Are these are all of them? Okay, because I Supervisor Perea, I know you often speak, but I don't see a card from you, so it's the okay, Fresno Works. There it is. I see. Okay, so we do take comments in order, but we start with our elected officials, and as it happens, that Supervisor Henry Perea is part of folks coming from Fresno Works, and along with Leanne Eager and Tony Boren. So, Supervisor Perea, good morning. Welcome back.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. It's great to be back. When you change your meetings to Tuesday, it made it very difficult to attend, because that's when our board meets. But I hope you know we are here in spirit with you all the time. And again, thank you for your steadfast leadership in shepherding this very important project for the state through. And we support, obviously, what you do and what the governor's vision is for California and transportation. Today, we're going to take a few minutes and just to give you a brief presentation, a video of what our vision is for our Merced facility and how transformative it will be for the San Joaquin Valley. And we all know, the number one goal of high-speed rail is to move people up and down the state with the population growing. But from a Fresno County Valley perspective, it's a game changer from an economic perspective. It's going to give us the opportunity to diversify our base. So that's what we see this as, also as a major infrastructure project, a major investment in the infrastructure, not just of our state, but really it's going to be for our country as we move forward. And I just want to share something that we always talk about when we are talking to folks at the local level. And I have to tell you, at least from my perspective, the opposition is getting smaller. I think people are understanding that as the project's moving forward, things are happening, people are getting more, or becoming more accepting. But just when I think about infrastructure, I think about our commitment and our vision, our goal. I just briefly read something from George Washington University, January 2013. The United States has invested more reconstructing Iraq and Afghanistan than it did rebuilding Germany after World War II. $60.45 billion has been spent in Iraq. Over $100 billion has been spent in Afghanistan rebuilding those two countries' infrastructure. For comparison, the U.S. spent less than $35 billion in today's dollars in Germany from 1946 to 1952. It's about priorities. It's about the investment of our money. And yes, maybe we have obligations around this world, but our number one obligation is to ourselves. And I believe the governor and his vision and the state legislature and you as the shepherds of this project are doing the right thing, and we thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you, Supervisor. Ms. Eager.
Hello, good morning. We just wanted to give you a little update on what we're doing in Fresno with our Fresno Works group. And for those of you who don't know, this was a group of community leaders that came together 2009 to look at the heavy maintenance facility and what we wanted to do going forward. And we haven't stopped working on that since 2009. We have traveled around the world looking at maintenance facilities, seeing what it is that we want to bring to Fresno County. We have committees that have met regularly. Our education committee meets monthly, and what they do is they really look at curriculum and start training people now for the jobs for high-speed rail. We have a safety committee. We have a real estate committee. And I think we are probably the only group in the state of California that has been steadfast and had continued to work on this for the last 6 years. So part of what we have done is ensure that we have a site that's perfect for the maintenance facility. And Tony Boren, who's the executive director of our COG, has been the chief of our real estate committee, and he's going to tell you about that site.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, we believe, and I know you've seen the proposal, we found an excellent location on the south side of the city of Fresno, an area that's planned for an industrial. We're going to show you a video right here, I think, that captures everything that we have in the proposal. I think my message this morning would just be to you folks that Fresno COG and the Fresno region is committed to high-speed rail and committed to pursue the heavy maintenance facility, and to the point that we're willing to pledge $25 million of our Measure C sales tax dollars to make this deal happen for us. So I'll just stop right there and show the video.
Thank you.
Through the chair, before you do, I just wanted
Yes,
to ask
Mr.
Supervisor Perea if he could please submit your comments in written form to this committee. Yeah. Thank you.
Offering the promise of a brighter tomorrow, California's high-speed rail system and related heavy maintenance infrastructure will provide significant economic benefits to our region that will serve as a game changer for the Fresno community and the San Joaquin Valley region. Working together with the California High-Speed Rail Authority, the Fresno County region is working collaboratively to create a system and maintenance facilities that will truly be a global showcase for high-speed rail, drawing investment and commerce from around the world and making Fresno the epicenter for high-speed rail in this country.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Very nice, Leanne. Thank you. Well, I just want to take a moment and thank the representatives from Fresno for coming here today. It's just it's nice to see that a community has a vision of what this could mean, so we appreciate that. Moving on through public comment, next we'll have Mr. Ted Hart, followed by Rose Jokel, and then Paul Guerrero. Mr. Hart, good morning.
Good morning. We'll get in front of one of the mics here. I come before you today going back to May, which I had written a letter. Chairman Richard and I ran into each other, and he has now said that he would be responding to that, so I'm going to skip forward on some of it. But the issue that I have spoken to you over a period of the last 5 years, I think it's important to provide the public with a total overall estimated cost of what you anticipate the system may be. Now, I realize that anything of this magnitude is difficult. However, we know that, or we have in place, the estimate for segment 1. So what we're really missing is segment 2. And that should be very easy to put together in the sense that after I've spent 60 years in the construction industry, you have people up here on the board and that would be more than well qualified to sit down and come up with some sort of an estimated cost. And I think the public has been looking for this for some time. In addition to that, I now will go over to, you're going to be required to do this under Public Utilities Code 185033. It says that the authority shall provide a chronology at each publication of a business plan for a price on the segments, independent and collectively. So in essence, what that says is that it's required that you provide a price for segment 2. Now, of course, we don't have this at this time, but that's been in place for a while. And what I'm really trying to say is I'm not interested in saying, okay, look, you have to do this. You should just want to come forward and do it. What's required under this is secondary to the position that it really presents something that's important. You know, I have been monitoring this project for 5 years, and I'm from the public. I do this because of my family, my great-grandchildren who are 6th-generation Californians, and I can appreciate the amount of work that goes into all of this. I've sat through some of the Finance Committee meetings, and I know how complex it is. Having been in business my entire life, I know what's there also. So Chairman Richard said that he would be responding to me, and I appreciate that. And please give consideration to these facts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. I don't usually comment after speakers, but I will say that we did have that conversation this morning, and I also told you that in addition to responding to you, I would talk with the staff about the issues that you raised today, and I will. So appreciate your interest and your comments this morning. Rose, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Is it Jokel? I'm so sorry. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm very happy and pleased.
Could you speak into the microphone, please? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rosa Jaco. I'm very happy and pleased to stand before you. And I just want to let you know that a great high-speed rail education took place on the 4th of July. I was a host or a booth at the River Park Neighborhood Association on the 4th of July celebration, and I helped kids build high-speed train out of gun drop in toothpick.
We're trying to do the same.
They had a blast. Kids are very creative. While I was helping the kids build their train out of gun drop and toothpick, I was also showing the parents YouTube video of the high-speed rail train coming into Sacramento. They also was very interested. Another experience that I have is last week my in-law are currently in their mid-70s. They drove over 14 hours, almost 800 miles, just to take their grandchildren to Southern California. Can you imagine a 4-hour, how much relaxing and efficient a 4 hours fast train ride would it be for them? Another comment that I have is we're celebrating my boyfriend's grandma's 100th birthday later this month. So I would appreciate if you guys just get the train up and running so we can ride it in her lifetime, if possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Paul Guerrero, followed by Diana Lacombe.
Good morning. I know Diana was going to talk about Caltrans, and I just want to preface her remarks with, I know you have a new small business advocate, and I hope she works with the contractors that are working with Caltrans to make sure that they get paid timely. I'm not saying Caltrans doesn't pay timely, but I know contractors who would make that statement. So we hope that those contractors get paid on time. About 3 months ago, I addressed you and showed you this and said that we were working on this with the Department of General Services. And I'll tell you that it's now being implemented. And this will be on the state website with the red, green, and blue. And you'll be able to take and click on any agency and see exactly where they're at with their small business participation.
Mr. Guerrero, there are a lot of people who follow us
Right.
just listening on audio, so why don't you take a second and say what this is that you're holding?
Okay, this right here is a layout of the state. It starts with the governor. Well, actually, it starts with the people of California and goes down to the governor, and then it goes down to the various agencies, and it works across the page to the director, the transportation agency, and flows down, shows the highway patrol, which is totally in red. It has not met any small business or DBE goal. Department of Motor Vehicles, which is in the green. Department of Transportation in the green. Board of Port Commissioners, totally in the red. High-speed rail in the green and in amber. And amber is the caution light, which means you have not met the goal, but you're close. And so you're at 24% right now instead of 25%, and so we hope that your person can bring that up. Because I like to brag about, well, a high-speed rail, is doing 30%. And they say, oh, yeah, take a look at this. And so let me go back to bragging, and I would really appreciate it.
Thank you. Ms. Lacombe, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Richard, members of the board. As Paul Guerrero mentioned, Caltrans, we have brought to this authority the fact that Caltrans on the realignment of Route 99, that we had requested that they follow the 30% small business goal. And we were told through various different directors that they didn't have to follow it. But I was very happy to see that in today's Finance and Audit Committee Performance Matrix, you have it here in writing that Caltrans is not currently meeting it, but intends to meet it by the end of the realignment project. So thank you for that, for not ignoring us in the achievement. The other is I wanted to thank staff and some volunteers, Diana Gomez, Leanne, that for the tour that they gave us as members of the Business Council. They gave us a tour of Fresno, and it was really eye-opening. We're used to seeing it all in paper, black and white, and reading it, but it's really something when you actually see it, brick and mortar type of thing. Something is being dismantled, something else is being built, and so on. So it was very exciting to see it all, finally coming to fruition. So I wanted to thank you for that, and I hope that the board also takes these. I don't know if all of you have done that, but it was a very interesting and eye-opening trip that we took, so I want to thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lacombe. Last speaker card I have is from Mr. Keith Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. Keith Dunn here on behalf of the Association of California High-Speed Trains. I just want to give the board an update. Like Fresno, we have prepared a video that hopefully will be completed by your next board meeting, which we'd like to share with you. We did not secure Neil Diamond to do the background music, but
I'm not sure they did either. But
yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure that they took all appropriate measures to secure those rights. But it's in an effort to go out and reach out to specifically the middle, high school, and younger college students. Promoting high-speed rail, the project, and what it does for our environment. So we're 3/4 of the way done with that approval process. We're also updating our website, which hopefully will be an interactive tool that they can use, social media and everything else. So we just want to keep you informed on what we're doing. We're planning on going up and down the state visiting the Central Valley, but also in Los Angeles and here in the Sacramento region as well. But we'd like to present that to you at your next board meeting, and just wanted to thank you for your efforts and keep in the loop.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. We appreciate comments from the public this morning. Thank you very much. So that will conclude the public comment section of the meeting. We'll move on now to our regular agenda, starting with consideration of approval of the board minutes from June 9th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Been moved by Director Schenk and
Second.
second by Director Perez-Estelano. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Schenk?
Yes.
Vice Chair Richards?
Yes.
Director Perez-Estelano?
Yes.
Vice Chair Selby?
Yes.
Director Correa?
Yes.
Director Curtin?
Yes.
Chair Richard?
Yes. Thank you. Item 2, consider issuing a request for qualifications for environmental and engineering services in the San Francisco to San Jose and San Jose to Merced project sections. Mr. Traposis, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. Ben Traposis, Northern California Regional Director. I'm pleased to present for your approval the release of a request for qualifications for the completion of environmental and engineering services in the San Francisco to San Jose and San Jose to Merced project corridors. It should be noted that this single review effort will produce 2 separate environmental documents. You will recall that the authority initiated review of these corridors in December of 2008 with the goal of achieving environmental clearance in the 2009 to 2011 timeframe as a fully built out independent alignment for high-speed rail in the Bay Area. As you know, since that time, we've embarked on the development of a blended system in the Caltrain Peninsula Corridor and have partnered with the Caltrain Joint Powers Board on the electrification of the Peninsula Rail Corridor. In order to accommodate future high-speed rail service in the Bay Area, it is necessary to complete a follow-on environmental review of both the San Francisco to San Jose and the San Jose to Merced project corridors. Significant work has been completed to date, and this effort will build on that work to complete the environmental review. This RFQ will facilitate that review by enlisting consultant support who, along with the authority and rail delivery partner staff, will complete environmental analysis and achieve a record of decision by December of 2017. The detailed evaluation of the Bay Area corridors will include the following: rail infrastructure and safety improvements in the San Francisco to San Jose corridor, location and viability of passing sidings, any necessary station and platform modifications and improvements at 4th and King, Millbrae, San Jose, and Gilroy stations, initial geotechnical analysis through the Pacheco Pass to the Central Valley Wise. It is important to note that the work currently underway in the Central Valley Wise and north of the Wise will be referenced but not replicated in this evaluation. The budget for this environmental review is $36 million. The work will be completed through a rigorous task order process where the specific activities necessary to achieve a record of decision will be assigned to the appropriate member of the selected consultant team with a detailed budget and schedule associated with each task. This effort will achieve the following milestones: a draft EIR-EIS by November of 2016, a draft final EIR-EIS by November of 2017, and a record of decision, as I mentioned, by December of 2017. Staff will complete the procurement process for this effort according to the schedule outlined in this staff report, with an expectation to award and execute the agreement for consultant services in November of this year. Staff recommends the approval of the release of the RFQ for environmental and engineering services in the Bay Area corridors, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. I do have some, but turning first to my colleagues, let me just go right to left. Any questions? Ms. Perez-Estelano.
Good morning. First of all, thank you for the memo. I just have a question. The timing of the EIR is, you expect to have the EIRs in circulation by fall of next year for San Francisco to San Jose, and then the next segment, winter of 2016. I just want to make sure that these allow, because I'm coming from Southern California, and we've had to, make sure that we allow for plenty of public review. I'm just wanting to make sure that we have enough built-in time for community participation and the kind of rigorous involvement that we are accustomed to in the program.
Thank you, Director. Yes, in fact, we're initiating that stakeholder and community outreach in advance of bringing the consultant teams on board.
Okay.
We've already scheduled community and stakeholder meetings in the Bay Area in the September timeframe. We will be building on those and expanding those. It is really our intent to have at least a year-long conversation with the community before we begin to get into the detail of alternatives analysis and preferred alternatives and the like. This analytical effort can go on in parallel to that community conversation.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Vice Chair Selby.
Thank you for this. This is great. Being in the Bay Area myself, I know that we can be a contentious bunch, and I'm interested in knowing. I know you've got a 2-year time frame basically from the time that you start to the time that you finish. Is there some room, if there's any slippage one way or the other, so that the program and the project can continue as it should? Because I know you're going to be doing some great community work, but there's also other things going on, particularly in the San Francisco area, that I know you're aware of, but I just want to make sure that we have a little bit of buffer there, if possible.
Thank you, Director Selby. We're committed to minimizing the slippage. We are absolutely committed to having a record of decision by December of 2017. Given what we know today, we believe that we can meet that goal. At the same time, we're working with our community partners, certainly with Caltrain, with the City of San Francisco, and I'm sure you're alluding to the rail study that is currently underway. Our expectation is, because those efforts are ongoing and very active, that we'll be able to incorporate any outcomes that come from those efforts into our analysis and incorporate it in a way that doesn't affect our schedule.
Other questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Curtin.
This is my second meeting, so you'll have to forgive me. But the last meeting we issued a contract that was very closely contested among 2 highly qualified firms, and it was a considerable contract. This is not insignificant either, but I just wanted to ask a little bit about the procurement process, the evaluation process. Is this just a sort of a formula that is traditionally used? And I'm looking at the technical evaluation criteria and then the discussion interview evaluation criteria, because to offer, it seems so just mechanical in terms of the numbers in the last contract that it made me a little concerned, because I'm looking at 30 points out of the technical evaluation for organization, key personnel, and roles. If a firm doesn't have organization, key personnel, and roles, they probably shouldn't be even at the evaluation point. To offer 30 points for that seems a little high. And I know I'm nitpicking, but what I'm getting at is perhaps you should take a look at the point evaluation and make it more specific to the project itself. Understanding project requirements is pretty important. I gathered all that, but it seemed that if you've been through this process, you already know and you have a good understanding of the project. If you're coming from the outside and trying to get in, you may not appear to have the same level of understanding. So these points can be pretty critical among competing teams. So the second point, though, discussion interview evaluation criteria, it just basically says it's a carryover from the technical criteria, and that's 60 points. I don't quite understand that, so maybe you can explain that a little bit to me, and why we're offering 30 points for what should be almost entry-level kind of criteria. Past performance seems to me to be very, very critical, and a good review of what's been done in the past would be a high point standard for me. But having the right personnel or the key personnel or enough personnel almost seems like, well, you could be the greatest team on the planet, but if you don't have the personnel, you're not going to be qualified. So I'm wondering if this could be take a look at this for a little bit more focused the way you distribute the points.
Director Curtin, we certainly could look at the way the numbers are allocated. In general, the values that you see here are maximum values, and they're applied by the selection team that's appointed through our authority adopted process as an opportunity to address the scale that you identified, that each team will have its own discrete level of capabilities and staff and skills that they bring to bear as part of their procurement. As in terms of assessing past performance or applying past performance, strictly speaking, we try very hard not to do that in the procurement process, that each procurement is an opportunity for each offerer to submit their skills and interest in the particular procurement anew. But we'd certainly be able to...
So you don't stress past performance, which would seem to me, a good indication of future performance.
I would say we do. It's not a specific factor. I mean, so for instance, in the evaluation of the organization personnel and roles, what we're looking for is not just that company A has done this work 10 different places, but we want to actually see the people who are there committing to this project, what their expertise is, what their performance has been in delivering it, meeting the kind of schedules that we want to see happen, that they can integrate with our organization effectively. So it's woven into a lot of these factors. It's not a discrete element.
I see that in the second section, which is important, the key staff that you're going to commit. But what I'm sort of missing is, do you bring the skill set that's required for this particular project? And then, of course, are you going to apply your personnel to this project in a fashion that we're comfortable with? So it just seems awfully high to me. And I don't want to nitpick, but we had a very, very close competition last time. And just hoping the right questions get answered, maybe just for the future procurement process as well.
And if I may, part of the way that we're trying to get at the authority's policy, where our CFO, Mr. Fong, helps select the right people for each respective procurement, so we ensure that we have the right level of technical expertise and understanding on the panel for each discrete procurement. So that bringing that level of expertise to bear will help, I believe, address that.
Okay, well, I just wanted to raise it so people start thinking about it, because it seems just very formulaic, 30-30, 30-10, and if there's not a lot of thought in each of those categories, it could be misleading, and we, with these numbers we're handing out, we want to make sure we got the right people in the right place, obviously. So,
other questions before I raise mine?
Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chair Richards.
Thank you. I have three questions, Mr. Treposis. The first, with regards to the quantitative risk analysis that you mentioned of the schedule and the budget, and which would be performed, and then the management plan development. When will that occur, and how does that impact this whole process, and what's it mean to us?
Part of the expectation is that the consultant team, once on board, will perform that risk analysis as part of their evaluation and really our evaluation of their ability to deliver under the standards that we've established. So they will lay out with us and with support from our RDP team exactly how they'll arrive at that.
So that's after the consultant.
Once we see their plan for delivering and meeting the schedule, we do that risk analysis then and determine whether we're comfortable with what they're doing or whether we believe we need to make changes in that approach.
Okay, I think I may have stepped over you in my ears here. So is that done before the contract has been executed, or is that after the contract's executed with the consultant?
After the contract.
After. Okay, and so we're confident that after having made that selection that whatever comes of this is a matter of just ensuring that they are compliant with the goals and necessities of what we have to do, move the project forward.
Yes, the evaluation criteria above, including understanding of project requirements, things. Each of the proposers will have to commit to meeting the schedule and provide their plan for doing it. What the risk analysis will do will then really do the deep dive into the
that's what I really wanted to hear. Thanks. The second one, it really gets to my colleague, his discussion of the points. What concerned me in looking at this was in the second set of numbers that really up to 60% of the 100 or 60 points are really a carryover from the statement of qualifications. So it seemed to me that it kind of undervalues the importance of the evaluation through the actual presentation portion. So I'm not sure of how that occurred either. I think that's part of what you were talking about also. I'm not sure what, it seems like it de-emphasizes the importance of this portion of the selection process.
Well, we're certainly, as I mentioned, willing to look at the allocation of the scores. But again, I want to emphasize that those are maximums as they're applied by the panel.
Is it just because you just generally don't put that much weight on the oral presentation?
There is, right. If you look, the combination is there's a combined heavier weight on the submitted materials, and that's intentional. I think it's consistent. We want to see, I'll look at the other way. We don't want to be wowed by a slick presentation necessarily, and so we want to really make sure that they understand the project, they put the work into compiling and assessing the team members, developing the approach. The interview is really then meant to make sure that we understand what they've proposed, that they're committed to what they're doing, that they've actually that give us the chance to interact with the people that they're proposing, the key players. So there is an intentional heavier weight overall on the statement of qualifications portion.
So if we were to act on this today and you were willing to consider a change in the breakdown of that's identified here, that would need to be incorporated somehow in the motion, right?
Right, because we'd need to put that out in the RFQ.
Okay. And then finally, I'm trying to understand the role of the CEO in all of this, which is below where we talk about the selection committee will recommend the top ranking offer to the authority CEO, and then it then goes on to state that the top ranking offerer will be the one who's selected. So I'm not quite sure what your role is, Jeff.
Is that a general statement? Or
Depending on your answer.
If you want to cover it that way, sure.
That's really just a process of then bringing it forward to the board for its approval. I don't second guess the panel unless I see something that just looks abjectly wrong.
And does this give you the authority then to second guess? I mean, if you think that it's wrong?
If I can certainly go back and question the panel about if there's a discrepancy in scores that looks odd or something like that, but I'm not participating directly in the procurement.
Okay. I guess from my own perspective, I'd rather see you have a more active role. We've often talked about just wanting to make sure that we've got the most capable people sitting on these selection committees, and that we see that as part of your role also, at least I do. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Oh, yes, Ms. Schenk.
By the way, I would take that as a vote of confidence.
Yeah.
So my concern really just echoes what Catherine has brought up, and that there are two major ongoing issues. One is timing, and the other is cost. And I just want to make sure that we have the adequate staff, both in terms of number as well as own qualification, to oversee this process.
Thank you, Director Schenk. We believe that as we bring this consultant team on board, as I mentioned, in partnership with authority staff and RDP staff, rail delivery partner staff that we have in place, we do in fact have the team that can deliver the record of decision on the schedule that we've identified. At the same time, we have a significant body of work that's already been established, certainly from San Jose to the Central Valley Wise, that we'll build upon. And in the Caltrain corridor, as you know, the Caltrain Joint Powers Board is moving forward with their electrification project, their design build project, and we have a a good amount of information already established there. So we believe that we're in a position where we can do just that, and we do have the right people on board, and will have with adding this team.
Okay, but having been through more than a few of this kind of process, I would like you to be very skeptical. I would like you to be looking at this with a pretty jaundiced eye about slippage and timing, rather than sort of a glass half empty rather than half full. That's always served me well.
Well, I certainly like to be optimistic. Part of the reason that we're taking the task order approach to this effort is that so we can rigorously drive the activities that will happen on this quarter, that we establish clear schedules and clear costs for each of the activities that we need to get to a record of decision. So it's through that effort, that rigorous oversight, that we expect to keep both our schedule and keep our costs down.
I, for one, would like to have very regular reports, granular reports on timing, rather than just say, well, we've got the schedule and yes, we're adhering to it. I'd like to sort of get down in the weeds on
And
it.
I'd be happy to provide those.
Thank you.
Just on that point, we're developing a reporting mechanism through the Finance and Audit Committee that will provide information to the full board
Great.
on the pace of the environmental work.
Thank you.
And so that you will see that. And I would also just point out this proposal and the way we've put it together and the way we'll administer it takes into account the revised structure we have with the rail delivery partner and the capabilities that they bring. It will, frankly, be a much more efficient, more focused environmental process than we've had before, and which will help us meet the schedule and make sure that we have adequate public participation in it at the same time.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to turn to my questions now. First, I want to say, just for context, so Ben, I don't want you to get the wrong impression here, because I think all of us have tremendous confidence in you, but I really want to drill down on this because all of our contracts are important, but the environmental analysis is the long pole in the tent for developing the northern initial operating segment of the two IOSs that we look at. And so we can't do anything until we have the environmental clearance done. We can't access the bonds. We can't move forward with the project. So the efficiency with which this is done is very, very important to the overall project. So I think it merits the kind of analysis and questions that you've been hearing from board members today. So on that point, I have about 4 questions. So my first question is, it picks up on what the CEO just said. Who is managing this effort once this team is brought on board?
At the end of the day, I'm the accountable manager for the program.
I understand that, but you have a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to understand who's going to be whose job is it from the time they get to work in the morning till the time they leave to be in charge of this particular process?
My deputy director, Lillian Hames, helps me lead the effort on the ground. Each project section, San Francisco to San Jose and San Jose to the Central Valley Wise, will have an individual project lead, project manager, to manage the day-to-day activities on those efforts. And their teams they'll have specific teams dedicated to just the delivery of those project segments.
Okay, and the reason I ask this question is that it strikes me, picking up on comments made by Ms. Perez-Estelano and others, and I'm familiar enough with environmental analysis, there is the technical part of it that is meeting all the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act. And then there is the other part of it that involves public engagement and making sure that there is, full participation. And then there's the other part of it, which is the project management part, which says this is part and parcel of a larger, if you will, PERT chart of how this project's getting built. And so all those things need to be accomplished simultaneously. So I guess what I'll be looking for, and I don't expect you to answer it today, is where does the emphasis lie? Is this going to be a person who is just an overall project management person? Is this going to be a person who has specific expertise in CEQA analysis or whatever? So I think it's going to be very important for us to understand how the management of this is taking place, because little things that slip are going to multiply and add up. So that's my first comment on that. I don't know if you want to.
No, if I may, Mr. Chair, I would answer that in part by saying that we have every expectation to bring all of our resources to bear. We have program management staff and support here in Sacramento that are part of the Northern California team. There are technical experts on the rail delivery partner team that are part of the Northern California team. Obviously, they are participating in other parts of the program, but we have all of our resources, or we intend to bring all of our resources to bear as part of this effort.
Well, let me channel my inner Mike Rossi, even though I ran out of the house without my pocket square this morning. But I think he would say if everybody's in charge, then nobody's in charge. So, I mean, I think we need a more specific sense of, yes, of course, there's got to be multiple resources, but somebody needs to be in charge of this effort who's accountable to the CEO and to us to make sure that this thing is moving forward.
At the end of the day, that's me. But on the ground, it is, I have specific individuals who will be managing each project section.
Okay. Second thing is, my next two questions both get to the issue of balance. Ms. Perez-Estelano raised the issue of, getting public engagement, making sure we have time for public engagement. I want to do all that, but I also want to make sure that the schedule that you've laid out gets met. And just one small thing, but we're saying that we're going to have a very strong emphasis on the schedule. I appreciated the clarity with which you laid that out, but I note that that's a 2-year schedule and it's a 3-year contract. Now, I'm just saying that if I'm a contractor and I've got a 3-year contract, I have a different mentality than if I'm a contractor and I have a 2-year contract if there's a 2-year schedule. And I do understand that we don't want to be ridiculous about it because things do happen and things slip. But I would just ask the staff to go back and consider whether or not it's appropriate to have a 3-year contract for a 2-year schedule.
But the reason for having the length of the contract exceed is there's work that needs to be done after the rod is secured, where we need the team that has helped secure the rod to be able to answer questions and provide support beyond it. It's not intended, obviously, to relax the schedule. I'll just tell you, you'll note in the memo we have not later than dates.
I do.
Our intent is to, in fact, beat those schedules. But we do need to make sure we have the consultant available to perform any necessary follow-up work, clarification, et cetera, after the case. That's what we've done on the other environmental contracts, and that's the reason for the difference in time.
Okay. I mean, that's fair.
And that would be, as has been the case in other segments, it's a greatly, greatly reduced level of effort then on their part post-rod.
Okay.
It's, again, just to be a resource.
Well, I think I'm also trying to communicate to the prospective contractor community that we have a certain mindset in mind. And so I want to make sure that they're locked into that. And then finally, penultimate question is, how can I get comfortable with the work that has to be done here as compared to the work that's already been done? And I understand some of that probably needs to be refreshed and so forth, but it does seem to me that given the length of time in which we've been dealing with these environmental questions, that there's a great opportunity for kind of going back and reinventing the wheel. And I understand that the staff report here says, well, we're going to build on that and we're going to do all this other stuff, but especially if you're assembling a team and it includes people from the rail delivery partner who maybe weren't here before, how do we get comfortable knowing that this contractor is not going to be going back and doing stuff that's already been done? Who's forcing the integration to really look at what that baseline is and what next needs to be done? Because I think this is, somebody once said that any fool can build a bridge. It takes an engineer to build a bridge that barely stands up, meaning that, uses only enough materials to not overdo it. We want to have an absolutely comprehensive and well-done EIR. I don't want to spend 5 years doing the EIR because then we're just getting chewed up. So where's that integration take place? Who's really going to make sure that this is done as efficiently as possible, not reinventing what's been done before?
Mr. Chair, I couldn't agree with you more. What we are going to do at the outset of this agreement is have that conversation with the selected consultant team. There, as I mentioned, there's a great deal of work that's already occurred between San Jose and the Central Valley Wise. The work that occurred between San Francisco and San Jose initially was the full build-out work. So what we're building on is the environmental review and the electrification project that's currently underway that Caltrain is leading. The important point here is that whether we're looking at the San Francisco to San Jose project section or San Jose to the Wise, we have comparatively a relative few options that we are able to look at. We're going to drive the process. Again, part of the reason that we've taken this task order approach is to really emphasize the fact that we have a fairly narrow window in terms of what we can build and where we can build it. The Caltrain corridor is the Caltrain corridor. We're staying substantially within that right-of-way. San Jose to Gilroy has essentially the Union Pacific right-of-way or somewhere adjacent to it, and Gilroy to the Central Valley is roughly the 152 corridor. Much of that work, certainly San Jose to the Central Valley Wise, it has gone as far as the Checkpoint B process, so it's fairly well advanced work. So much of that direction has already been done, and our direction to the consultant team, the authorities and the rail delivery partners' direction will be, we've done that, we've established these baselines, we're working further forward, not, as you suggest, starting from scratch.
Now, is there somebody on your team who's been through those earlier things who can sit there and say, we have done this, and point to things in those documents?
Besides me? Yes, there are several.
Well, I'm thinking that you've been with this for several years, but I mean, some of this stuff predates you. That's what I was really referring to.
Well, thank you, and what I'm referencing is my last life with the city of San Jose. I was engaged as San Jose's point person on high-speed rail through all of those community meetings and all of that outreach and all of the discussion about the alignments and how it was going to come through San Jose and how the corridor was going to work. And I'm trying to apply some of those lessons learned as much as possible from my perspective, but we also have team members. And really look, one of the criteria that I think we'll look for in the teams are teams that can express some of that understanding and experience.
But Mr. Chair, if I could just, an important element in all this, again, is the front-end work that we will do within the authority and with the RDP as a partner to really define the project and then assign the task to go out and clear that and do what's necessary to clear it.
Okay.
And so it's going to much more rigorous on the front end of the process, which I think will help address a lot of the issues. That's the intent, is to really redesign how we do this process.
Okay. And I mean, I think what you're hearing from me and my colleagues is just, to really make sure that the attention is paid to this, because this is an opportunity to really do a very good EIR efficiently, or to come back a year from now and find out that we've got huge problems and things are languishing. And I want to just, my last point, I want to pick up on the point that Mr. Curtin raised, because I think it's important, and I think he raises a very important point that's difficult, and this is where we talk about balance. It strikes me that for an area like this, doing environmental analysis, there's a limited universe. It may not be a small universe, but there's a limited universe of companies that provide these kinds of services, and they have track records. And I'm very familiar in the public sphere, particularly on the energy side, with environmental analyses that have gone horribly wrong and have led to projects spending 3, 4, 5 years at the Public Utilities Commission, for example, without being able to get a certified EIR. So I do think that past performance is important, and I think that there are probably some companies out there who have, a pretty dismal track record, time after time, of getting behind, maybe not having the right people on it. And it's not that we're going to be able to, even if we wanted to, debar them from public work, but I don't want to be the next victim either. And so I really want to emphasize that I think in the evaluation process, asking people how they have addressed complex situations like this, what they've done to maintain schedule, to maintain integrity, whether or not their work product stood up to the inevitable challenges, the legal challenges and others. So I don't think it really makes sense for us to tell you to change the point criteria, but I would say that in adopting this, I'd like to ask the staff to just go back one more time and really take a hard look at that. Because, again, this is a long pole in the tent, and getting the right person here could make a difference of a year or more in terms of our ability to move forward on this project. And I do think that sometimes public agencies put on blinders to what has happened with companies in their past work with public agencies, and I don't think that we need to bind ourselves to that. So it's really just expressing my opinion on this, but it was prompted by Mr. Curtin's statements, which I think go to the heart of something very important. Mr. Morales.
First, I'd ask Mr. Filens if he could comment whether, I just want to make sure we don't have any legal restrictions or anything else in terms of looking at past performance.
That's why I asked you to go back and look at it, because I didn't want to be prescriptive, because I figured there were probably some limitations.
Right, I think there may be, but I would say perhaps we could, whether it's just built into the understanding of the board or whether we modify the resolution to note that these criteria will clearly specify addressing similar issues on previous projects. Build these things into these scoring.
Or maybe the way to do it is to recharacterize it as demonstrates an ability for demonstrated problem-solving ability or an ability to address, complex situations like this or something, where basically they have to come forward and say, this is what we were able to do on this. Mr. Curtin, did
That's
you
what
want?
your comment on the legal track record was pretty spot on as well, because, if there's a history of losing in court on your analyses, that's pretty important to know ahead of time.
Yeah. Mr. Filens, you don't have to say anything, but if you'd like to, you can. Why don't you say it into the microphone? Your words are too important to be lost to posterity. Yes, thank you. I was thinking posterity.
Mr. Chairman and board members, there is no restriction on looking at past performance, and typically in these types of procurements evaluations, you look at past performance. And in fact, oftentimes they're set up so that references must be submitted as part of the evaluation process, and then staff and calls the references, asks a lot of rigorous questions, gets information about prior experience. So that is very typical in these types of procurements to go through and look at past performance and actually talk to the public entity officials, or even in the private entity owners who worked with these companies and saw the performance and can give honest comment back to them.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? If not, pleasure of the board. Tom, did you want to add anything?
Only that I just don't want you to underestimate the value of the oral presentation. I find it over the course of time, the difference between what appears on paper and what is in reality, and especially when you're dealing with a consulting firm, in this instance, is going to be so directly involved with dealing with stakeholders in the public. So I think it really merits your strong consideration of the importance of the oral presentation.
Yes, sir.
Chair?
We'll incorporate that.
Is it possible that we just ask staff to kind of take all of the comments and issues that we've raised and that you incorporate that into the process so that we have a kind of comfort level, and maybe he comes back and shares? Because I don't think we want to interrupt with the timeline, because they're clearly on a timeline, but we also want to make sure that the issues that have been raised are addressed.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that's what I was trying to get at before when I said I didn't think it was appropriate for us to try to be prescriptive in the resolution, but that I would ask the staff in good faith to take these comments under advisement, and before you issue the final point scoring, before you do this, to if you guys come back and say we've thought about it and we want to proceed as well, then that's fine. You're accountable for the result at the end, but if you think about it a little bit more and want to make some adjustments or change wording, that's fine. But I think we're on the same page, Ms. Perez-Estelano, which is not to be prescriptive in the resolution, but to ask and expect the staff to just reflect on the thoughts from the board today.
I'll second.
Okay. So it was moved by, I think, Mr. Curtin. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, hold on one second. I'm sorry, Mr. Morales was raising a point.
Let me just say, I think we want to make sure we reflect what the board does, but also make sure that the board action then ties with what we ultimately do. And so if what I would suggest is in the resolution, we include some sort of direction, some latitude to reflect past performance and oral presentations, but not making a material change to what's been presented here.
Well, I guess I think what you're asking is if, now that this document's been presented to us, if you change something, are you putting yourself at risk? I don't see anything. I mean, I think the resolution would be the operative.
Well, but I believe the RFQ has the scoring in it, right? So.
But that hasn't been issued yet.
No, but you're giving us approval to issue the RFQ.
And
so
possibly change
that.
that. Okay.
Latitude to change it.
Okay.
Consistent with board direction. That's.
So let me just take a quick second here. Sorry. Board of qualified teams. Issuing a request for qualifications.
I mean, it may be covered already, so it would make appropriate. And if the board concurs that a slightly higher weighting on the interviews, for instance, would not be a substantive change, then I think we're okay with the distance.
Just give me 1 second. So authority staff is to make. Well, see, somebody could argue that they're not non-substantive. Authorized. Well, let's just strike the word non-substantive. Is authorized to make, strike all, is authorized to make appropriate changes to the request for qualifications part of the procurement process. I think that.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that you could list some of the changes that you have.
I know, but then we're going to spend the next 20 minutes on wordsmithing. Okay. I'm trying to, as we want to do with this contract, I'm trying to be as efficient as possible.
Right.
So I was just thinking, Tom, if we just said on that last sentence, authority staff is authorized to make appropriate changes to the request for qualifications as part of the procurement process, then Mr. Morales and the staff could decide, based on this conversation today, whether they want to make any changes. I think the word non-substantive, I mean, I understand that, but appropriate and non-substantive are probably.
I think that covers it.
Yes, appropriate. I think I agree with that. That should do it.
Yeah. And so that gives you the latitude to do what you need to do, and the board has authorized you to make those changes. Okay? So if the maker of the motion will accept that as a friendly amendment, we, in the last sentence, strike the word all and the word non-substantive.
Let me think about that. Yes.
Okay?
And I'll second that.
All right. So it's been moved by Mr. Curtin, seconded by Ms. Perez-Estelano. Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Schenck,
Yes.
Vice Chair Richards,
Yes.
Director Perez-Estelano,
Yes.
Vice Chair Selby,
Yes.
Director Correa,
Yes.
Director Curtin,
Yes.
Chair Richard.
Yes. Mr. Trapostis, I just want you to remember that it is indifference that is the opposite of love, not anything else. So, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Did you just make that up?
No, I heard that someplace. That's true. The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. I think that's true. Ms. Rivera, I know you're eager to come up and take on the next item.
Always open with a joke.
So moved. Oh, no, I don't have any jokes.
Okay, yes, so we're now moving on to item 3. Consider approving the fiscal year 2015-2016 audit plan and acknowledging the internal quality assurance self-assessment November 2013 through June 2015. Paula Rivera. Ms. Rivera, before you start, I just want to say that one of the board members reviewing, some of your recent work, we're very lucky to have you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Richard, board members, and Mr. Morales. I'm Paula Rivera with the Audit Division, and I'm here to present you with the internal audit plan for this fiscal year, and presenting it to you is required by internal audit standards. The plan contains 16 audit activities and was developed based on executive management input. We currently have 5 audits or reviews in progress, a follow-up on prior small business utilization review, and a follow-up on prompt payment. We have a right-of-way reporting process audit going on, a continuation of the contract management audit, and an audit of the design build stipends and advanced technical concepts. Audit results will be provided to the Finance and Audit Committee, as is our practice. I'd also like to present you with the results of our internal quality assurance self-assessment, which is a review of a sample of our audit work papers to assess compliance with audit standards. The review reported no significant exceptions. To provide a little background, the international standards for the professional practice of internal auditing require, as a matter of auditor independence, that internal audit activity plans and resources are reviewed and approved by the board. In addition, internal audit organizations are required to maintain a quality assurance program with internal and external assessments and communicate the results of those assessments to the board. Do you have any questions, or is there anything I can add?
I thought it was good.
Mr. Chair, just
yes.
one point of, to make sure board members are aware. In addition, as you'll see in the plan, there are 16 specific audits, but then there's also a reservation of capacity to take up audits as they are deemed necessary over the course of the year based on either board inquiry or things that we determine on the management level. So there is that room to adjust during the course of the year.
Yes.
Ms. Perez-Escalano?
Yeah. Paula, just for my clarification, number 6, is that an abbreviation or is that actually a report that's an audit requirement?
Sorry. It is an abbreviation. It's an audit requirement. It's in government code that every other year each state entity performs a self-assessment of their risks, and that gets reported to the Department of Finance, and it's our role as auditors to facilitate that self-assessment. So it's really management's risk assessment. We solicit the input. I help them through the risk ranking of it. We audit the controls that are in place surrounding those risks, and then we report back on whether or not the controls in place mitigate the risks.
So is that an acronym for something?
Yes. Financial Integrity State Manager Accountability Act.
Gotcha.
Glad you asked.
Thank you. I tried to guess it. I didn't get that.
Okay.
So that's all. I just for clarification.
Ms. Schenk?
Yeah, thank you. My question is also with number 6. I'd like to see what are the risk areas that you're going to be auditing in this this winter 2015. So either tell me or we can get it submitted to us.
Okay. Management identifies what the risks to the authority are. Primarily, they're administrative risks, and then they'll be risk ranked. And then it's like there's a heat map that we do, and things that are high impact, high probability. Those are the risks that will move forward, and we're in that process. So what we're reporting is the risks, and we're auditing the controls surrounding those risks.
It's just administrative?
Yes.
Not project?
Correct. John Tapping is the risk manager, has an entire program set up to be identifying and addressing project risks and program risks. Ours is things like for the prior report 2 years ago, control agency delegations was a risk, records management was a risk, the lack of an adequate financial management system was a risk. So they're administrative risks, but they do have an effect on the program.
So if I could just pursue that a little bit. What I'm used to with internal audit, because you are the independent reporting directly to finance and audit and thus to the board and administratively, as I understand it, to the CEO, that the oversight should also be of every aspect, including the project risk areas. So is that something that you want to address?
Yes, the FSMA under the law specifically is really geared toward those administrative types of things. If you look at the rest of the plan, you'll see the project-related areas that audits is looking at. Right-of-way, the design-build oversight, incurred costs, those types of things. So the full scope of the audit plan looks at the project risk. This FSMA piece is specifically directed by law.
Okay.
Correct.
And one other quite more general question again that I asked your colleague. Do you feel that you have adequate staff to fully look at all of these risk areas? And do you feel you're getting the cooperation that you need internally?
We currently have a vacancy, but we're working with Caltrans. They are loaning us 2 auditors for the next fiscal year, and we have 2 retired auditors who will be also working with us for the next fiscal year while we try and work on our resources. It's I don't want to say adventurous. It's an aggressive audit plan, but we believe that with the combination of state staff, Caltrans loan staff, and retired annuitants, that we have the resources we need. And yes, we do get the full cooperation.
Thank you.
Ms. Rivera had, I'm sorry, Ms. Selby, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question. I think you may have already said this, but on number 10 for this year, the small business follow-up in progress, where can I read that when it's completed? The audit.
Original review or the follow-up?
Both.
We can provide that. I can point you directly to where it is. It'll be in the Finance and Audit Committee meeting, I believe, from last May. I can get you a copy of the report, but each time we issue a report, it's provided to the Finance and Audit Committee the following month. And our small business report, we have a draft that we're fact-checking right now, and we hope to issue this week.
Ms. Rivera, just one thing came to mind. Item 11, the Caltrans SR99 construction contract. Should I ask, is it appropriate to make sure that the auditors that we're borrowing from Caltrans are not auditing the Caltrans project?
Correct. The auditors that we're borrowing from Caltrans will be working on number 7.
All right.
And not number 10.
Thank you.
11.
I also noted at first, just on the level of being a wise guy, I noted that we have 800 hours associated to Caltrans and then 400 hours on number 14 for project construction management, and I wondered about the relative risk there. But then I think I realized that number 14 is only a subset, and that actually it's the 1,000 hours in number 1 that really looks at our...
Yes.
Okay. So it's a shame because it was just a great opportunity to make comparative risk comment that apparently is not borne out by the facts. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I just wanted to let my colleagues know that the members of the Audit and Finance Committee have been closely monitoring the preparation of this plan. In fact, some of the items are items that we have requested be audited in this fiscal year, and the plan itself has been a part of the materials presented today at our Finance and Audit Committee, and it is with our strong recommendation as members of that committee that the board supports and approves this audit plan. And thank you, Paula, very much for what you've done here.
Would you like to move it, Tom?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion for approval of the 2015-2016 audit plan has been made by Vice Chair Richards.
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Selby. Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Schenck?
Yes.
Vice Chair Richards?
Yes.
Director Perez-Estelano?
Yes.
Vice Chair Selby?
Yes.
Director Correa?
Yes.
Director Curtin?
Yes.
Chair Richard?
Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, next we have an informational presentation on planned safety and security systems for California High-Speed Rail. Our Chief Risk Officer, Mr. Tapping, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Richard, board members. My pleasure to be before you again.
My name is John Tapping. I'm the Director of Risk
Did you really mean that?
Yes. It is a pleasure, always.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Rossi's
we've had
not here,
3
so-
comments
Well, let me
because
say,
Rossi's not here. Is what.
80% probable, I'm telling you.
Excellent.
One of my roles as risk manager is actually I have purview over the authority's safety and security program. And I think one of the strengths, before we get into the presentation, of the authority's program is the fact that I'm autonomous from project delivery, from operations and maintenance. It's an independent, a program, and I report directly to CEO Morales in that fashion. So I think that's a real strength in terms of the culture of the authority. It's got very strong top-down, robust safety systems in place. So the title is Planned Safety and Security Systems, but we are implementing safety and security systems. One of our mantras is prevention through design. So as we're going through and doing the project delivery, we are doing hazard assessments and implementing design into safety designs into the design. Just an overview around the world. As many of you know, many countries have high-speed rail service, proven and successful, safe and secure. In particular, it's proven technology, which we're piggybacking on as we go forward. We'll be using the best industry practices from around the world. But also, there's a lot of innovation in the state of the practice right now. Positive train control, I'll talk a bit about that in the future, but that is a great advance that we will be implementing in our system. Historical perspective, here are some very successful high-speed rail systems that have been in place. Japan over 50 years without one fatality, incredible. France the same, 30 years with their TVC system. And North Korea, 11 years. Well, sorry. Thanks for that correction. Well, they are a country also that's developing high-speed rail. And I might add that the derailments on these, have been, while they're significant events, they've been kept upright through other systems that are in place that prevent some of the more catastrophic derailments. There have been other incidents, in all fairness, in China and Spain recently, and these are due to a number of issues. Earthquake, for example, and also overspeed events, which again, systems in place in our system, like PTC, positive train control, will go a long way towards mitigating that type of risk, as well as diagnostic systems. So I also wanted to say that high-speed rail is really one of the highest performing safety transportation modes if you look across all the other modes of transportation, including conventional rail. So it's really an exciting program. I think we have a great opportunity. Much of our work is greenfield work where we have dedicated facilities, and we have the opportunity to design in from the very beginning. Again, prevention through design. This is rather a busy slide, but it's basically our holistic approach to safety and security. We want to do a comprehensive, proactive approach. Again, I mentioned our philosophy of top-down, robust safety, all the way down through all of our subcontractors and consultants, and even our construction contractors. We have robust safety provisions all throughout. So again, we're relying a lot on domestic and international experience and best practices, but also innovation that we are seeing and best as we move forward. Fairly unique in our program is the advent of a risk-based hazard management approach to safety and security. Rather than a set of standards or a set of prescriptive program, we actually do much, it kind of rolls over into my other role as risk manager for the authority. We look at all of the risks and safety and security risks associated with the rail, and not just the rail, all the elements of the system. So we identify, eliminate, minimize, and control safety and security hazards as well as their resultant risks. So we go through a very formalized, rigid process of prioritizing the risks, identifying the magnitude of the risk, and if it's unacceptable, we have policies and procedures where we apply mitigations to the risk and raise it to an acceptable level. So we do that rigid process throughout the program, and it's continuous, and it's going on now, and we're designing these things into the program. We also have, as part of that process, as I said, an independence of our risk management program. We have two committees. One is a program level committee, which I chair, and one is an executive committee, which Jeff Theo Morales chairs. And as my role as being an independence, occasionally there are issues that drift up where there may be competing values, for example, of safety and or schedule. And a lot of these issues then are raised to the highest levels of the authority and looked at the mitigations that are required to accept the risk. So again, we have a robust program in place to make prudent and robust risk decisions at the lowest levels, and they raise up through the highest levels when necessary. Let's see, I've talked about prevention through design, the committees, overarching risk management program. I'll talk more about policing strategy, but also technology is very significant in our program right now, and we are going forward with an earthquake early warning system. We're in cooperation with Cal OES and industry as well as academia. We're proceeding with how we are going to be incorporated in the earthquake early warning system that will again roll into the train systems and the positive train control to have, for example, if there's an early indication in an earthquake, there will be provisions to slow the train down. And these have proved successful in Japan. So it's expanding technology, and we've been working with UC San Diego, Caltech, Berkeley, and there's actually a beta test for a product that's ongoing now, and we're looped into that as well. So as this technology evolves, we are going to basically, we have a seat at the table and integrate our system into that. Let's go to the next slide.
Through the chair, before you leave that slide.
Yeah.
Please.
How much time in Japan, for example, where they have so many earthquakes and a high-speed rail system, how much time do they typically have in terms of an early warning? Do you have
It's a matter of seconds. It's a matter of seconds.
3,
Yeah.
2.
It depends on the specifics, but it's, as John said, it's proven to be absolutely invaluable. In the major earthquake they had in 2012, for instance, there were no serious injuries, no fatalities. There were something approaching 24 high-speed trains out on the system when the earthquake struck. They were able to safely bring them all to slow them down and bring them to a stop without any incident. So and the key is tying it into the systems, as John said. It's not that someone gets a warning and then has to push a button. It's all automated to automatically trigger the reaction of the system.
Thank you.
My understanding is that what the Japanese seismic engineers have discovered is that when the earthquake happens, that there's something called a P wave, or a preliminary wave, that actually precedes the ground motion. And it really is only a matter of a couple of seconds. But they've put these detectors on the line that will detect this P wave before the ground actually starts shaking. So it's not a seismic response to shaking of ground. It's almost kind of an analogy to like an ultrasonic thing, above your hearing level. And when they do that, then they cut the power and the train starts to slow down.
Yeah, if I might just add, I had the great opportunity a few weeks ago to join CEO Morales and others at UCSD at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, and to learn about how they assess this and how it gets tied into high-speed rail. And it was, I guess, comforting. What wasn't comforting was to learn how much they still don't know about the earthquake faults in California. So, but having that connection with Caltech, UCSD, Berkeley, it's just invaluable. Their knowledge and their ongoing research. Yeah, it's been very interesting. Yeah, a lot to learn.
Okay, John.
Okay, so implementation, we have exclusive use corridors. Again, these are, in our dedicated line where we have exclusive use, no mixed operations, intrusion detectors at high-risk locations, and there's elimination of all at-grade crossings. And I'll have a simulation later to show the advantages of elimination of at-grade crossings. At the share use corridors, there's more of a challenge, I think. We need to have a strategic collaboration with the existing systems. Again, we need to do more of the on-the-ground corridor-specific hazard analysis. We get in and we do site-specific analysis. We're looking at grade crossing improvements to include potentially quad grades or other protections such as median barriers or channeling. So all of these options are being considered in addition to eliminating the at-grade crossings as well. So all of these things are underway. Okay, I spoke briefly about PTC benefits, and rather than go through these details, I have an excellent video that I think could explain it quite nicely.
One of the benefits of the high-speed rail project is that it will improve rail safety across the state. Already with the help of the authority, our partners Caltrain and Metrolink are making strides in improving their safety and efficiency by using an advanced signaling system called positive train control. This state-of-the-art collision avoidance technology is being installed on trains, tracks, and dispatch centers, and allows them all to communicate using a fiber optic network. Here's how it protects you. First, the train engineers will receive continuous information about speed restrictions, work zones, and other safety impacts. For example, the computer would alert an engineer approaching a crossing where the crossing arms are malfunctioning. Second, it helps engineers follow speed limits, and the train's onboard computer displays safe braking distances based on speed, train length, weight, and curvature of the track. And most importantly, it serves as a fail-safe system. If the engineer doesn't respond, the computer takes over. It will prevent a train from running a red signal or entering a stretch of track at an unsafe speed. Federal investigators say this technology could have prevented the Amtrak crash in Philadelphia that killed 8 people and sent hundreds to the hospital. Positive train control will also protect everyone in the event of a disaster. Metrolink has devised its system to stop all trains if an earthquake occurs. All of this is the same technology that the High-Speed Rail Authority will install on all of its trains and tracks throughout the state.
All right, that was short but very educational. Moving on to grade separations again. Just let me say the reduction of grade separations is a very good enhancement to safety and security. And you can see at the regional improvements there that we are actually eliminating a significant number of grade crossings throughout the state. You can see some of the benefits in addition to safety. Here's a good simulation showing some congestion there, noise. can also see this frontage road. There's obviously could be confusion in crossing. And here is a simulation of an overcrossing, basically, of the high-speed rail system that eliminates a lot of those issues. Here is an overpass, which is another design options for the same type of situation. And this, I believe, is a simulation in Fresno. Great, yeah. So, oops.
Through the chair, just quickly, the Rosecrans
Go back.
crossing, is that one of the most dangerous ones?
Yes, those three listed are significant issues with prior incidents, I understand.
Right. We're working in partnership with the Southern California agencies, and of those three are in the top 10 of the state's high priority grade crossings to be eliminated. And so we're really pleased to be able to be a part of that, make it happen. So it will benefit not just high-speed rail, but the local commuter system, and have huge positive benefits for traffic flow as well in those areas, and safety.
Thank you.
So we're looking at a similar approach for system security in terms of a risk-based approach. We look at threats, vulnerabilities, and consequences in the assessment. And throughout that process, then we come up with mitigations. What we are contemplating is designing for optimum security. We're looking at a system basically that utilizes security technologies such as CCTV, intrusion protection, access controls, and so forth. Barriers, fencing, appropriate glazing. We're looking at a combination of sworn and unsworn transit police to do the policing strategy, and we've been working with CHP and all local law enforcement to kind of put together a policing strategy approach as we move forward. We want it to be a community-based policing approach, yet we see it needs to have a central management as well. CHP has offered to assist us in that, and so we've been working with them in that regard. We're not looking at any kind of earthquake, baggage security type of processes. If you look at the literature on high-speed rail, and if you look at these other mitigation efforts, including sworn and unsworn officers, access control at the stations, as well as canine patrols, it is a prudent approach in going forward. So that's our plan. Again, we want a community-based approach here, and passenger-focused and coordinated with local law enforcement. We've been coordinating with both federal, state, and local law enforcement and our security partners at TSA, FBI, and the CHP. And again, we're also implementing lessons learned both domestically and internationally about how to effectively monitor rail stations and enhance their security. So for almost, I'd say over 3 years now, we've had extensive outreach both locally and at the state level with other agencies. And this has been very informative for us and for them. We've actually had tabletop exercises and had certain security scenarios and identified gaps, for example, in the agencies, in the local agencies that would need to be filled. And so we all work together in this policing strategy. So we've, again, had extensive outreach, and it's been very well received. There's a lot of excitement by the local law enforcement about high-speed rail, and they want to be involved in it. So that's been very fun. Get out and see that. Construction safety, now we're trickling down to the actual work on the ground. And again, we have robust safety provisions all the way through our contract documents, from a high-level, top-down safety policy by Jeff, all the way down to our design builder and our PCM overseeing the design builder. We have safety training internally, where all authority people have been trained in safety when they go out to the site. We have a expansive safety and security reporting system, a database, which we are going to implement not only on CP1 and CP23, but statewide, and so we can have metrics and also have documentation of how we respond to issues when they arise. Okay, well, with that summarizes my presentation. There's a few summary slides, and I'd be happy, 88% happy to take questions at this point.
Very good. Questions from colleagues on the board? Vice Chair Selby.
Thank you very much. That was really informative. And I'm wondering, because you do have so many wonderful different places to look, Japan being one of my favorite because it's sort of similar in landmass and earthquakes, and that it's been successful in having no fatalities. How do you prioritize, or how do you figure out sort of whether the domestic or whether the Japanese or whether the, which safety lesson you're going to take in terms of us devising our own safety procedures?
Yeah, I think there's a host of I think there's something to be taken from every system. The Japanese has been in place for 50 years, and certainly their positive chain control is significant. So there's I'm not sure specifically I can answer your question because there's a lot of industry knowledge out there. But we are through our RDP, we have international experts that work in our office that have come from, for example, Taiwan, and we're looking at verification and validation on the safety portions of it and what worked and what didn't. So we're putting together those best practices through the expertise that we have on our RDP contract and so forth.
Because I could see how maybe they could clash sometimes, that you might have to decide one over the other, or that it might. And I, for one, am very happy to hear that the baggage is not going through the carousel or whatever. I think the more we become like an airplane, in some ways, the more unpleasant it will be. So, well,
one of the slides that was removed because Jeff thought it was too busy was kind of a process we go through by which we assess the risk, and there's standards, right? There's proven standards, and so you can go through and identify those on certain lines. And then there's examples of systems that have worked, and you go through and you identify those. So we have a host of those from each system, and then if there's something particular that you don't, then you go through a very disciplined quantitative risk approach to implement it or not. So there's a systematic way by which we look at these things, is what I'm trying to say.
Other comments?
I just want to say it's great and I think an important message for everyone to understand just kind of what are the steps that we're taking to increase the safety of the program and also in terms of the construction of the program. Recently in LA, it's actually I think it was San Bernardino County, we had a terrible situation where we had a fire that went over a freeway. The fire actually engulfed cars that were on a freeway. So the fire went over the freeway, but it engulfed 20 cars. The problem for people in those cars was that there were sound walls. So there was no exit for people to kind of just flee. They had to run. And so some of these issues have come up. And so some of the, and I'm not saying that we have to as much as possible plan for the event of any kind of crisis. And actually the high-speed train has been proven to be very, very safe. And we've had these international examples. What we're doing is we are now investigating other issues that can come up. And so I just want to say that I think this kind of messaging is very important to the public so that they understand what steps are being taken and every consideration that we're making for their safety. I think that's very important.
And one of the things that John mentioned was the work we're doing with local agencies who will be the first responders in virtually all cases, so that they understand what the system is. We also understand from them, how they operate, what they need to operate, and they understand even to the point of what elevation a structure might be at. So, do they have trucks, with ladders tall enough to reach them? I mean, so we're really trying to think through all of these things at the front end of the process and reflect that both in the design and the construction and then ultimately in the operation.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to kind of comment on two things. First, I think that approach is terrific, and in addition to setting standards for unfiltered communication with the board, Mr. Tapping also, I think, gave us a very good presentation on the the safety and security programs. And I like the fact that you're looking out across the world at best practices. I do think we have to accept the fact that as humans, there is always that limit to what we can conceive. I mean, it's the failure of imagination. Whether it's 9/11 and people flying airplanes into buildings or whatever it is, there's always going to be something that nobody's thought of before. And airplanes are safer today because other airplanes crashed in the past, and we learn from those things. So there will be that unfortunate reality that happens. But I think trying to get as far ahead of that as possible, looking at as many different events, and then I don't quite know how you do this, John, but really trying to figure out those black swan events that are not part of the normative process. But I'm not saying a meteor hitting the system, but something that's truly unusual. So anyway, I want to commend you for that. I had just two quick comments. The first one is, I'm not an expert on security matters, but one thing that always struck me as wise intuitively is to not be completely forthcoming about what our security philosophies and approaches are, because I think creating a sense of uncertainty is one of the best deterrents. People will look for soft targets, and if they're not sure that you're a soft target or not, they may look elsewhere. And that was certainly an experience that I had in my 12 years on the local transit district, which was to just try to make sure that nobody saw any patterns in what we were doing, that we just were doing things, that we'd have presence sometimes, not other times, but enough that people knew that it was out there. And I do think that is part of a philosophy, and it's a little bit tricky because we have to balance our requirements to be transparent as a public agency, but I think when it comes to security, the public understands that there are certain things that we don't want to talk about in public. So I would say as you develop these, there may be ways to communicate with the board, but I do think we need to start to balance this as we get into operation. That I don't want people really feeling like they have a complete understanding of our security approach and philosophy. And then the last comment is just a generalized comment about safety. I liked every single thing that I saw that you put up there today. The one little nagging thought that was in the back of my head was that, comes from another experience I had in life, which was reflecting back at, PG&E's terrible tragedy in San Bruno, which occurred 5 years after I left PG&E. But, there was a safety culture, is what they always said. I mean, you'd go down the street as an officer, you were told if you saw a PG&E crew working without cones, without hard hats, without safety vests, it was your job to stop and remind them that these were things they had to do. Well, that was great. There was a safety culture kind of with small s safety, but when it came to whether or not adequate investments had been made to stop to find the pipe that had been corroded before it blew up and killed 8 people and incinerated 39 homes, that was missing. So, and I've talked to others about this. A friend of mine serves on the board of Delta Airlines, and she said they went through the same thing, where they realized that they had certain things that they were telling all of their pilots to do, but in the end they weren't really looking at their overall budget and budget implications for safety and things like that. So I just want to say that I applaud every single thing you're doing, but I do think it's worth stepping back and saying, Are there other aspects that are more insidious, that go beyond technology and even beyond culture, that get to the kind of decisions that get made in the design-build process, in the budgeting process, and so forth, that could, if one really thought about it, have an implication for safety? And I don't even know how to go any further than what I just said, but I would just, you're a very smart guy that runs a very competent operation, so I just kind of put that out there for you guys to reflect on.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Okay, thanks very much, John. I would say there was about a 94% chance that we liked that presentation. Okay, the board is going to enter into closed session now for the matters that we have listed on the agenda. But before we do, I just appreciate if people take a moment. Over the weekend, we received the rather unfortunate news that Mr. Greg Rogers, who was Executive Director of the Public Works Board of the Department of Finance, had died suddenly on vacation with his family. While I did not know this gentleman personally, because the Public Works Board has been so deeply involved in the process of acquisition of parcels, many people in the High-Speed Rail Authority, I think starting with our CEO, had worked directly with him, and he was universally admired and felt to be a person of very high quality. In the note to the finance department, Michael Cohn described him as more than just a long-term employee, but a really decent, wonderful human being. So we extend our condolences to his family and his friends, and we'll adjourn our meeting today. And I'd like the minutes to reflect that we're adjourning our meeting in the memory of Greg Rogers, the former Executive Director of the Public Works Board. So with that, we will thank you and enter into closed session.
I'm telling you, I don't know what's going on. You think you... Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, well,
Are we ready? Okay. Thank you. We have completed the closed session. There is nothing to report. This meeting of the High-Speed Rail Authority is adjourned.